All right, it's time to talk Tide here on Mark Rogers TV with Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama. Join him on his show, The Way It Is, Fox 97.9, Monday through Friday, 2 to 4 Central Time. Okay, as you mentioned off the top, Stephen, it's FSU again this week. It is FSU. It's FSU. Okay, the comparisons, I was trying to find another one. I was trying to find another connection between the two, but then I had to stop right there. So since the days of Pat Hill when Fresno State was one of those Power Five, giant killers, it's been thin times out there in California at Fresno State with the Bulldogs. Jeff Tedford currently the head coach. So I know you've started to prep the Bulldogs. What are you finding from this football program that's coming to Tuscaloosa?
Honestly, you're not expecting Fresno State as a whole to challenge Alabama. You're not expecting that one bit. But you do expect a couple of players on this team to give Alabama a push. I go back to Western Kentucky from last season. You do not expect Western Kentucky as a whole to challenge Alabama. But you do expect a lot of their players to give a push. Tywan Taylor, the wide receiver, he did that. Gave Alabama a push, and look at him now. He's in the National Football League. Forrest Lamp, the offensive lineman, probably one of his best games came against the Crimson Tide a season ago. When I look at Fresno State, number one, they got a receiver in Keyshawn Johnson. I believe he had 63 catches last year for 773 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. He's explosive, has a lot of playmaking ability. On the defensive side, you have linebacker James Bailey, who had 59 tackles a year ago, 5 of those for loss. You have a defensive lineman in Emeka Nadeau. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that last name correctly, but Emeka Nadeau, who had 2 sacks just last week in Fresno State's win. So the Bulldogs, they have some pieces that can push, that can challenge, that can affect some things. And that's what you want. Even though you may not have the overall athletes to run with Alabama, you at least want to have 1 to 2 or maybe 3 guys that can at least put on film, but you can stand with some of Alabama's talent. You're not going to stand with all of it, but at least have some guys on that field that can stand with some of it and give this team a little bit of a push. And I think these 3 guys, Keyshawn Johnson on offense, defensively, James Bailey and Emeka Nadeau, they can do some things to provide an impact.
Few teams threw the ball less effectively than Fresno State did in 2016, 125th in the nation in pass offense. And we were talking about the issues along the offensive line, and we talked much about Florida State's issues along the offensive line that came to fruition. But when you talk about issues at Florida State versus issues at Fresno State, we're talking about 2 different levels of football here, because we know that these Florida State guys will move on, a portion of them, to the NFL despite the issues along the offensive line. This offensive line for the Bulldogs that will take on the Crimson Tide on Saturday includes one very solid player who's had a decorated career at Fresno State in senior Aaron Mitchell. But the other 4 guys, you got a JUCO transfer, lightly regarded, redshirt freshman, you've got a walk-on, and you've got a senior who is just now cracking the starting lineup. So he was not good enough to play until now, his senior season, making his initial start. Didn't even start in week 1. He's getting his first start against the Alabama Crimson Tide. So welcome to the fire.
Welcome to the real world, as Kevin Rudolph would say if he was playing his guitar right now. But Aaron Mitchell, he's going to have to be the one to get everybody squared away and get everybody set up. And it's difficult when you got to get everybody set up at the same time. You got to take on your guy. And it's tough when you look across the line of scrimmage and you see Josh Frazier, Deron Payne, Isaiah Buggs, Raekwon Davis, and you look up and you possibly see Deshaun Hand, an outside linebacker. That may scare the heck out of a lot of people, just seeing that type of rotation. But if you're Aaron Mitchell, you got to get your boys prepared to play. You got to get your teammates, on one accord. And as I mentioned, try for Fresno State, if they can move the ball just a bit, if they can score, that's even better for Jeff Tedford and the confidence of that team. But if they can find ways to move the ball, that's a win. If you can pick up 3 yards from the play, that's a win. If you can pick up 3 to 4 yards on the ground, 2 yards on the ground, that's a win. The last thing you want if you're Fresno State is you playing behind but down in distance every single time, every single play, every single possession. If you can pick up just something every single down, then you can take pride in that.
We talk Alabama football with Stephen M. Smith each and every Wednesday night, and sometimes even more than that. You can join Stephen on his show The Way It Is, 2 to 4 Central Time, Fox at 97.9, and of course, the flagship home for Stephen M. and the crew there at Touchdown Alabama. Stephen, we always enjoy the discussion. I know it's only Fresno State, but a lot of important football to be played for the Tide for the next few weeks in preparation for SEC play. And you mentioned the Vanderbilt Commodores coming up, a game that the Tide will travel to Nashville for. So we will look forward to a little more resistance from the SEC against the Tide. But in the meantime, got to work on tightening up the ship on both sides of the football.
Tightening up the ship and getting some of these young guys prepared to play. I mean, it hurts not to have Christian Miller and Terrell Lewis. It hurts that you'll be without Anthony Jennings for a couple of weeks. He did have a successful ankle surgery, but you recruit these 4- and 5-star kids for a reason. So now we get to see what these kids are all about.
All right, Stephen, enjoy your night. It's always a good time.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.